So thank you. We will start now with the next session, and I'm really pleased to announce Sean here. I think he will talk a little bit about himself, but I have a question for you. I've seen that you once said that you will never be a DBA. Is it real?
That is very true. Yeah, I very early on in my career, my wife and I were at a company holiday party, and I was pointing out people, and she said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Oh, those are one of the DBAs." And she said, "Oh, it's a DBA." So, "Oh, they've got terrible jobs. They work all night. I will never be a DBA. I want to stay a developer forever." And a couple of months later, the DBAs quit and got new jobs, and they came to the two devs that were there in the company, and they said, "You're DBAs now." Yeah,
So
be careful. Be careful about saying never.
Exactly. Today you will talk about auto upgrade. So I leave you the stage and thank you very much.
I just wanted to mention before you start, Sean, we have to stay in time half an hour because we have an event in the break. So we would appreciate if you could, keep the time to stay within the 30 minutes. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, great. Well, good morning for me. Good afternoon, I think, for everyone there that's joining. Thanks for everyone that's involved in the conference and for inviting me to attend here. Real briefly about me. My name's Sean Scott, and I'm a DBA, a reluctant DBA, I suppose. I've been working with Oracle technologies for 25 or so years now. Work with some Oracle user groups and presented at a bunch of conferences. Professionally, I'm a principal consultant with Viscosity North America, and we're a full service Oracle Platinum partner. We're the 2019 Oracle Database Appliance Partner of the Year. Most of the work that I do is with customers working with RAC, working with maximum availability architectures, engineered systems, diagnostic tools. I do a lot of work with Docker. I do a lot of work with Trace File Analyzer and Autonomous Health Framework, and I do a lot of automation things, so I'm really big on automation. I'm also a member of the ACE community, and if you're not familiar with the ACE program, it recognizes members of the Oracle community for their contributions, not only technically, but for putting on events like this. So if you or someone that you know is active as a presenter or a blogger or a volunteer working behind the scenes in user groups to put on events like this, I really encourage you to nominate them and even nominate yourself. And then, of course, we want to thank our sponsors for the Swiss Oracle User Group Days 2021. Please feel free to work with these groups so that they can, or these organizations, so they can continue to support events like this one. And with that, let's jump into the show. So hopefully you're on board with the idea of upgrading your database and getting off of your old 11G or 12C infrastructure and getting onto the latest and greatest version of Oracle. And at this point, you're probably saying, well, what's the best way for me to do this? And for anyone who hasn't performed an upgrade in a while, I have really good news for you. And that is your options are a lot better now than they were 5 or 10 or maybe 12 years ago when you last ran an upgrade. But of course, that means that there are a lot of options available for you, and so many options, it can be confusing and even a little bit frightening because upgrades are scary. So what tool is right for you to use in your environment? What's going to work best with your systems, for your users, your applications, and so forth? And obviously, because this is a presentation on auto upgrade, I think that auto upgrade is that tool. So let me see if I convince you. And I spent a long time on an operations engineering team, and I really grew to appreciate good tools while I was working there. And auto upgrade is one of those tools. It delivers there. It is very suitable for being automated. And personally, I feel like the more you can automate, the more smooth and more predictable the results of an upgrade especially are going to be. And configuration goes hand in hand with that. Auto upgrade has a central inventory that really eases the management and effort of upgrading one database, 20 databases, 100, whatever it may be. It's got a very straightforward logging structure. makes it a lot easier, I feel, to track down errors and issues. And it also has a command line tool with some reporting capabilities built into it, as well as the ability to share status with a wider audience in your organization. It has multiple modes, from a non-destructive analysis mode of the environment prior to running your upgrade, all the way through automated repairs onto the complete execution and management of different upgrade scenarios. It's also resumable, and if you encounter an error, you can restart the upgrade at the point where it stopped without having to do anything special. Auto upgrade is also a very durable tool with the ability to create its own restore points. It has an intelligent process that detects and fixes errors that it encounters along the way. And if it can't fix an error, it will automatically roll things back to a safe state. And finally, it's free. It's backed by Oracle support, and it's kept very current with new features and new capabilities on a regular basis. So this is a really impressive set of features. And to put it into perspective, I want to take a moment to compare Auto Upgrade against a similar tool that you may be more familiar with if you haven't used Auto Upgrade, and that's the Database Upgrade Assistant. And I'm going to share some personal observations from having used both of these tools to upgrade databases from 11G and 12C on up to 19C. We call both of them at the command line, but the Database Upgrade Assistant, and when I talk about DBAA right now, I'm talking about it in silent mode rather than in the GUI mode. But both of them take some commands at the command line. Database Upgrade Assistant takes a series of parameters that you supply on that command line, where Auto Upgrade, we just reference a configuration file that it's going to read. So if you're familiar with running data pump, I kind of like to think of it as writing a Database Upgrade Assistant is like writing that really, really long data pump command with all your options on one line, where the Auto Upgrade tool is more like using a parameter file and calling that parameter file and just having it all embedded in there. The in-flight error correction is good on both tools, but I've run into a couple of scenarios with Database Upgrade Assistant where it went into an odd, lengthy retry loop, and it just cycled and cycled and cycled trying to run this upgrade before it finally died. I ran that same scenario with Auto Upgrade, and it detected the problem. In one case, it detected the problem and it fixed it. In the other case, it went through a single loop, discovered that it couldn't fix that problem, quit, and said, "I give up, please help." So it saved some time in that particular scenario. It was interesting that both tools were at their current revision levels, and that one was successful in finding this problem and the other one died, to put it politely. And I've also seen a couple of situations where Auto Upgrade identified some problems in pre-upgrade checks that Database Upgrade Assistant missed. These are probably some more unusual situations. These were tests that I was running in order to create some scenarios that might be difficult for an upgrade. But I think it speaks to the capabilities of Auto Upgrade that it caught those things. Both of these tools will create guaranteed restore points for you. The difference is that Auto Upgrade does it by default, although you can turn it off if you'd like. Whereas in Database Upgrade Assistant, it has to be something that you call out specifically. And the same thing goes for the pre and post upgrade tasks. They're automatic in Auto Upgrade, whereas they're optional in the Database Upgrade Assistant. But I think the real major difference for me is how much work it takes to resume an upgrade after there's some sort of interruption, if there's a failure or an error in the upgrade itself. If you have to go in and you have to do some manual intervention, there's a big difference in how you resume the process. They're both resumable, don't get me wrong, but it is a very different process. With Database Upgrade Assistant, you have to go in and you have to figure out the phase where it was. You comb through a bunch of logs, you find that. In a multi-tenant environment, you also have to go in and determine what was the pluggable database that was running. With Auto Upgrade, you just restart it. You can run the same command that you had before. It knows where it was, and it picks right back up where it left off. And that brings us to logs. Sifting through the Database Upgrade Assistant logs is a little more tedious, where I personally find the auto upgrade structure and the format a little bit more intuitive. Auto upgrade, I think, has better logging as well, where you can go in and you get a progress bar from both of them. So let's say, we're 45% done. The difference is that I'm impatient. And with Database Upgrade Assistant, I've had a couple of upgrades where I sat there and I was like, I think this is dead. I think that this failed somewhere because it hasn't done anything in a long, long time. And you start digging and you say, okay, yeah, it does seem to still be doing something. Whereas Auto Upgrade gives you a more regular update saying, I'm 45% done. I'm still 45% done. And it's comforting when you're sitting there and you're watching the upgrade to see that it's moving and that it hasn't stalled out. So a little bit different there. I mentioned that it gives you a progress bar, or not a progress bar, but a percentage complete progress update. Both of them do this. Neither of them are particularly accurate. So all in all, Database Upgrade Assistant is a really great tool. You are not making a bad decision if that is the tool that you choose to go with, especially if you run it in silent mode. I think it's great because you can automate and you can do all the things that I would want to do as a DBA and an engineer. But my personal experience is that Auto Upgrade is a better tool, and not just a slightly better tool, but a much, much better tool. I really enjoy using it. Which brings me to the myth-busting segment of the presentation. My company, Viscosity, we've run some 19C upgrade workshops, and we've had attendee questions and so forth, and I've gotten to interact with some folks, and there's been a lot of attendee surprise. Auto Upgrade can do that? So let's bust some of those myths. And the big one is that Auto Upgrade is only for running and automating lots of upgrades in big shops, and that's not true. You can use this for one database. You can use it for hundreds. It's not difficult or time consuming to configure, relatively speaking. And it's not something where, it's only worthwhile if I've got 8 or 10 databases. No, you can do it very simply and very quickly. Something else that I've heard is people saying, it seems like the target and source versions are very limited, but you can use Auto Upgrade for versions 11.204 and beyond. And I think that there are a couple of exceptions, like 12.101, the odd patch releases. And in addition to being able to upgrade to 19C, which is mostly what I'm talking about here, you can use Auto Upgrade to move to any version from 12.201, 18.5, 19.3, and newer. It'll run on any operating system where you can run an Oracle database. Supports Standard Edition and Enterprise Edition, although if you're running Standard Edition, then you won't be able to run a guaranteed restore point. So you have to manually disable it, and you do that in the configuration file. It's not a really difficult thing to do. I had somebody tell me that they thought that it was difficult to use, and I don't want to judge anyone's experience or anything of that nature, but personally, I find it very straightforward. Most of the people that I work with that have used it have said, oh, this is really, really easy to use. It's just a single command line tool. Someone told me that they heard that it was slower than Database Upgrade Assistant, and I thought, well, why? Why would it be slower? They're both just front ends for running the same upgrade operation in the database. I don't think that you get a better response or a faster upgrade from one or the other, because the upgrade process itself is the same, upgrading the catalog and so forth in the database. But I think when you consider the improvements you have in the logging, the automation, and the error correction in Auto Upgrade, we may actually be lowering the total effort and shortening the time as a result. Somebody said, oh, I thought that Auto Upgrade forces you to move to pluggable databases, which is not true, unless you're upgrading to 21C, of course. But you do have the option of converting non-container to container if you choose. And then with 19.8, this is a new slide here. It used to say not rack friendly. You're right, it's not rack friendly and not data guard friendly. Yes, it's true, it's not data guard friendly. No more. There is support for rack databases, and you can even upgrade data guard environments now and keep your data guard environment setups intact, which is very cool. Hopefully that convinces you, puts your fears about auto upgrade to rest. So let's talk about how we move forward with this. It is included in Oracle 19.3, in the 19.3 database software and beyond. Updated versions are part of each release upgrade. Better still, download it from My Oracle support. There's no additional licensing, no plugins, agents. You don't have to have Enterprise Manager. It doesn't need to be plugged into the cloud. There's no extra hardware. It's roughly 4 meg jar file. You need to have Java 8 or later, which conveniently enough is built into your target Oracle home directory. So this is auto upgrade in action. This is, we're going to get our hands dirty and actually run an upgrade. That's the command right there. That upgrades the database. That's it. And with that, we're done. You said that you needed to be out in half an hour, right? We're done. Well, there is a little bit more, just a little bit. So you're probably saying, well, there's not much to that, right? How can something that simple do so much? So let's start at the end. We'll talk about modes. So auto upgrade has 4 modes. There's analyze, and analyze is a non-destructive operation that you run at the very beginning of things. It identifies and it reports issues for you. And then you can move on to the fix-up step. And fix-ups does just that. If you would like auto upgrade to make your database upgradable, run fix-ups, it will go through and it will automatically repair any exception in your database that it can. Now, there are some things that you need to go in and change manually. And a great example of that, that manual fix is the recovery file destination size. Recovery file destination size is the #1 reason that upgrades to 19C fail, I think. It seems like a really easy thing to fix. And so why wouldn't that be automated? Well, we don't want a tool to go in and allocate space, add space to an environment that could potentially harm other things. So you do need to do some things manually, some things for yourself in your environment. But many other things fix-ups will do for you. Upgrade is a mode that we use primarily when we're running an upgrade as part of a migration. So we're talking about taking a database from one machine and moving it to another. So in the case of an upgrade or migration, we would run analyze and fix up using auto upgrade on the source database, on the source machine. And then we would run upgrade on the target machine. And there are a couple of things that are a little bit different about upgrade versus the next fully automated mode that I'm going to discuss. In this upgrade mode, there's no guaranteed restore point created because that would be on the source machine. And it doesn't perform the post-upgrade actions since it doesn't know what post-upgrade actions need to be performed because they're on the source. But the good news is you'll have the scripts, the post-upgrade scripts and steps that you need on the source machine that you can bring over and run on the target. So this is an example of where auto upgrade would be part of a combined strategy where you're using more than one tool to accomplish or complete a migration or an upgrade. But the really cool mode, the neat mode, is the deploy mode. And this is the mode, this is the operation that does everything. It'll do the setup, the pre-upgrade checks. It'll create the global restore point for you. It will run the pre-upgrade fixes for you automatically. It drains load off of your server. It runs the upgrade, runs the post-upgrade steps, runs the post-upgrade fixes, all of the extra actions. It applies your time zone patches, all of that. It is a completely automated end-to-end process. So one of the things that we need to have in order to run auto upgrade is a configuration file. And we see, let me get my, my highlighter here. There is actually a capability within auto upgrade where we can create a sample configuration file, and it'll build out a configuration file for you. You can also, this is the script that I use to create a configuration file. And so I just That's a whole configuration file. That's everything that you need to run an upgrade. I have one, in fact, running in the background here that I'll show you in just a moment. So let's look through the configuration file and talk about some of the things that you'll see there. The first thing is there are some global parameters and there are some local parameters. Those global parameters are going to apply to every upgrade using the configuration. The log file is a good example. That's a globally defined location for all of your logs. Your target home and your source home may be another example of that. Those local or individual parameters are going to be specific to individual databases. And there are some parameters that can't be global, some that can't be local, and so forth. Some that you can have globally and you can override them locally, but there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of capability built into this. So let's look at a couple of examples here real quickly. Here, this is just an example of a configuration that you might have for a single database. And you see that I've got this identifier over here. This just says, this is an upgrade, and these are all the parameters that are related to it. So I've got a source home, I've got my directories, I'll have a version here at the global level that says all of my databases are going to be upgraded to 1910. And this is my single database home that all of my target databases are going to have. So what if we have a whole bunch of databases that are all the same and we have one outlier? Well, we can handle that. We can do some things at the global level, and then we can have individual database definitions all the way down through to our outlier. And here we can define that different target version if we want. So we've got capabilities to modify and adjust and tweak these parameters for each individual scenario that we might run into. So it's probably unlikely that your version of your home path is going to change for every database, but what is something that is going to be different from database to database to database? Parameters. Every database is going to have something different, most likely. If only there were a way to make all of those changes as part of the upgrade, wish granted. We can add and remove parameters during and after the upgrade. We can add parameters by referencing a parameter file formatted the same way as a regular database init.aura file would be. We can remove parameters just by listing them in a remove file, one per line. You're probably saying, but what if I want to remove all those underscore parameters from my old databases because we don't want to have those underscore parameters present when we run our upgrade? There are a whole bunch of them. I don't want to have to go through and add them all individually. Do I have to type all of those in? No, you do not. There is a single parameter or single value in the config file that will remove all of your underscore parameters for you automatically. What about running scripts? Can you run scripts? Because everybody's got scripts, right? You can. We can run scripts before. We can run scripts after. In Linux environments, these are just going to be shell scripts with a .sh suffix. In Windows, they're bash script or batch scripts with either a .cmd or a .bat suffix, or PowerShell scripts with a ps1 suffix. Autoupgrade has a really nice little console. You don't have to set or unset anything in your shell, so you can run this tool without having to worry about having special path settings or anything like that. When you run Autoupgrade, by default, it's going to drop you into this interactive console. And the first time I used Autoupgrade, it surprised me a little bit because I got a prompt and then it didn't do anything. I wasn't really expecting a prompt. I was expecting to just like finish, I suppose. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, I'm like, what's going to happen next? And then boom, hey, look, there it says help. So I go to type help, and before I had a chance to do anything, the job finished. So this console is an interactive session. It gives you feedback and you can run different commands within it. But it also, if the job finishes, then it'll drop you back out to the command, to the regular shell prompt. So don't get freaked out if you get in there and you've got a prompt and you're like, I wasn't expecting this to happen. You can run Autoupgrade without a console just by specifying a no console flag at the command line. But this really is a neat feature because you've got all these neat things that you can do. You can list jobs, you can look at the logs, you can see what tasks are running and so forth. And like I said, you have this help feature built into it. This is the second half of your help screen. Status, jobs are the two things I think that you probably use most in this environment. But this is also where you can manage your upgrade jobs themselves, including aborting and resuming jobs and even restoring databases. And I'm going to take just a moment here to skip out. And this is an auto upgrade console that I'm running right now. And you see that I just resumed this job. And I'm doing that for a reason, because I'm going to show you something here in just a second before we run out of time. So this is an example of the features or the commands that are available to you in the console. One thing I will note is that there's an abort command, but there isn't a pause command. Abort, to me, shut down abort seems like a very dramatic thing to do. Abort is just the term that's used in auto upgrade to say we want to stop or pause this job. From there, you can resume it. So it's not a final, we're going to kill things. It's just a way of pausing it. And so one of the things I mentioned logging before, one of the big differences is how Database Upgrade Assistant and Auto Upgrade create logs. With Auto Upgrade, you get this I think, very intuitive looking logging structure that creates subdirectories for every job that it runs. So a pre-upgrade check is a job, a deployment is a job, a fix-up is a job. And so you'll get these individual directories with your log files existing and showing up underneath each, which is really convenient, really nice to find. And that's some more information on logs. But one thing I do want to show you is this neat capability. You can run a Python web server on your upgrade machine, and then you can go out and you can view a status. And I just showed you a moment ago, I kicked off that auto upgrade, or I resumed that auto upgrade job that I was running. And this is the output from that job. And you'll see here in just a second, even if it doesn't do anything, it's going to flicker. It checks a status every 30 seconds or 60 seconds, I think. And so this is a really neat tool if you're working in an environment where you have stakeholders that may be invested in your upgrade, and you don't want them standing at your cubicle or your desk asking you, how's it going? Are things moving along? What's the status? You can do this for them. You can share this information, and they can check this from their desk. They don't have to be standing over you. It gives you visibility into the process, which I think is very positive in an organization, because it's the type of thing that builds trust and confidence in your team. I'm not going to go through these individually. These are some things that I do and that Viscosity does when we run upgrades. These are the common things that we check. One thing I will say is I cannot overemphasize the importance of practicing upgrades so that when you are actually in your production environment working on them, you feel comfortable. It's a refined process that you've been through many times, so that when you do hit a problem in your upgrade, and you will, I guarantee it, there's never an upgrade that runs smoothly and without problems. When you do hit that problem, you'll be practiced, you'll be familiar with where to find the logs and so forth. Here's some of the additional preparations that we'll go through, and these will all be on the slide deck, so I will share that with the group, and some opportunities. And with that, it looks like I've got 60 seconds left. So what are the questions? Anyone? And I've got some additional information here on this slide. Mike Dietrich has a fantastic webpage. If you've never been there, go check out his site, because he's got some tremendous information on auto upgrade, especially, but new versions and so forth as well. Anyone questions?
So it seems we do not have questions. I just have to mention, I have used Autoupgrade to upgrade hundreds of databases for one of my customers, and that was very successful. The only thing we discovered was when SGAs were defined too small, like SGA target below 2 gigabytes. I mean, that's the only thing we had to check beforehand. Besides that, you know, everything worked more or less smoothly. So that was really nice.
It is a very smooth, very fluid process, I find.
Yeah.
I am going to give a shout out to today is my grandson's 5th birthday. So happy birthday, Justin.
Okay, happy birthday as well.
So thank you, Sean. It was great. It was very interesting. And I mean, Autoupgrade becomes more and more a standard. Therefore, yes, thank you for your presentation. And I think I will hand over again to Clemens now.
Yeah.
Something that's waiting for us.
Ja, thank you. Ich switche jetzt gerade mal auf Deutsch. Ich freue mich, dass wir das heute machen können mit der Alessia Wutke. Die hat ein bisschen Yoga- oder Stretching-Übungen für uns vorbereitet. Und ich hoffe, dass da möglichst viele mitmachen. Alessia, bist du bereit?
Ja, hallo.
Hallo. Es ist so, wir würden gerne vielleicht noch 1-2 Minuten Viertel vor, also haben, damit der nächste Präsentator sich noch ein bisschen einrichten kann. Ansonsten leg los und wir sind bei dir.
Soll ich auf Deutsch oder auf, also Schweizerdeutsch, Hochdeutsch?
Ja, Schweizerdeutsch.
Okay, gut. Tipptopp. Dann legen wir doch gleich los. So, in dem Fall, schön machen wir mit mir das Experiment mit. Wenn wir heute mal versuchen, uns zu entspannen in 15 Minuten und ein bisschen Stretch